Hi, I'm James Nelson, Vice Chairman at Cushman & Wakefield, and I'm here to bring you the Nelson Report's March 2016 podcast. In February's podcast, I talked about the untapped potential of New York City co-ops. So for this month, I wanted to talk about all the potential for not-for-profits out there in the city, many who also have a substantial amount of air rights. But here, the opportunity might even be greater. Because with not-for-profits, the type of square footage which they use are designated as community facility use. Okay, so instead of with co-ops where their residential square footage counts against the residential square footage, here with the not-for-profits you might have a higher community facility floor-to-air ratio, which will give them some more potential and some more residential rights left over. Now this might be getting a little bit technical, but for example, in a C6-1 zoning distinction, there is a floor-to-air ratio of 6 times for a community facility, meaning that if you wanted to build one of these facilities, you could take the lot area, you could multiply it by 6, and that would tell you how much you could build. However, the residential FAR is only about 3.44 times. Okay? So the opportunity for a not-for-profit who wants to monetize their rights and stay put and maybe have a new facility either improved or rebuilt would be to build a community facility of the balance of the 6 and the 3.44. That would be about 2.56. You can tell I figured out these numbers before. And then add the residential on top by either selling it to a developer, or in some cases you could have a developer come in, build a whole new building, and then deliver back this community facility condo at no cost. We were successful in handling a similar transaction a couple years back for the 10th Church of Christ Scientists at 171 to 73 McDougal Street. Back in the 1960s, in an architectural statement, they had decided to brick up a Romanesque revival facade and have a light well to shine in on their ground and second floor, which they renovated. The above floors, floors 3 through 6, they completely abandoned. They had no use for these floors. They were an expense and a maintenance issue. Now, these floors, and back then there was no condo market what to speak of, or even co-ops for that matter, but today they were very, very valuable. So when it came around 40 years later for the church now to look to renovate their space once again, they wanted to do this by monetizing the floors above. So what we were able to do was to value this and to find developers who could buy the above floors and renovate their floors below, and we were successful in doing so. We actually sold out those above floors at over $5 million. They were able to use some of that money for the renovations and put the rest in an endowment. So there's important considerations to talk about when you structure these transactions, because the worst possible nightmare scenario is if it was a not-for-profit, or any seller for that matter, who wishes to retain a portion of the building after construction, would be to subordinate their interest. So what happens if the developer did not complete the project and if their interest was subordinated? Because in that case, the bank could hypothetically take back the entire property, and that not-for-profit, that seller, would be left with nothing. So there's been a couple different structures which have been discussed over the years or used. One is a ground lease, where you could do a ground lease which then collapses and becomes a condominium structure upon approval. However, even today, with the challenging lending environment, not subordinating even a ground lease is very difficult to do. So I'm working on a transaction right now where we're actually going to have the developer build a new building, deliver back to my client a ground and second floor retail condo, but because we understand that it will not be impossible for my client not to subordinate, what would happen in the very unlikely occurrence that the project is not built is that that developer would give a personal guarantee on that retail portion. So if that space was never provided for, they could at least collect on the value of that. So, you know, there's a lot of things to consider when structuring a transaction. So having good counsel, once again, an attorney, a broker advising on this is essential. But I think there's also, for the not-for-profits out there, and the lesson that I learned from McDougall Street is that there we went out to the developers and said, you know, what do you think our new space should look like? How do you think we should use space? And we're actually now working with a new church, and now instead of waiting for buyers and developers to give us a structure, they're going to meet with architects and space planners first to find out how can we more efficiently use space. So in this case, maybe it's only not using a lower level, ground floor and second floor. Maybe it's using the ground floor and maybe half the second floor with double height ceilings. Maybe it means digging down below to have a usable lower level. And having flex space, and that way we can go out to the market and say, look, we are selling the above rights above, but we need you to build what is prescribed for here in these architectural plans. And hopefully this one will happen a lot quicker. So that's it for this month, and I look forward to being in touch. Thank you.